Nonverbal communication is important when you're giving a speech. What do you want to look like whenever you're giving a speech? You don't want to hear a speech with somebody that looks like that. Remember, we said that you make your first impression in the first 30 seconds? Well, if you're hearing a speech from this gentleman with a frown like that, would you really want to listen to that person? So we need to look at our nonverbal communication. There are three main types of speeches. There's memorized, impromptu, and extemporaneous. Memorized is not the best way, because if you memorize a speech, you can forget a sentence and then that throws your whole speech off. So I don't like for students to try to memorize a speech. It's okay to memorize facts and maybe certain statements, but don't memorize the entire speech. An impromptu speech, that's where you don't have any practice. Someone asks you to get up in front and speak for 10 minutes. You didn't even know you were going to do that. There are some speech classes where we actually do impromptu speeches. Now, not in our class, but sometimes the professor will give the student a topic and then say, you've got about 15 seconds to get ready, and then you come up and give a 4-minute speech on that topic. And you had no idea what the topic was. Extemporaneous speech, that's what we do. That's where you're practicing. You've had a week to rehearse and rehearse. Remember, we said you want to practice, practice, practice. So with these type of speeches, we do have to look at our nonverbal communication, our eye contact. We want to look at the audience. We want to try to make eye contact with people in the audience, and that's pretty difficult. We want to look at our gestures. We don't want to play with our hair. We don't want to use our hands too much. We want to look at our movement. Whenever you smile, that's what we call immediacy. That shows closeness. We want to look at our posture. We don't want to be slumped over or leaning on the podium. That is wrong. This is one of the biggest things I see with students. They want to lean on the podium. The reason that they like to lean on the podium is we like that podium in between us and the audience. So we sometimes hug the podium. We feel comfortable. But no, we need to stand up straight, have good posture. And we've also talked about the vocal delivery. We want to have good volume. We don't want the audience to strain to hear us talk. And we need good articulation. We need to move our mouth, open our mouth as we speak. We want to look at our dialect. We don't want to use colloquialisms. If we have a twangy dialect, we want to try to change that at least while we're giving a speech, if possible. And we've talked about our pitch and our inflection, the way we use words, and our cadence. All of these are important, and all of these are things that we can practice before we give the speech. That's why I said earlier, we want to practice, practice, and practice.
You heard me say this before, but if you're ever using some type of PowerPoint presentation, make sure that that is just an aid. Remember, PowerPoints are there to help the audience. Your job isn't to read the PowerPoint. And also, if you're giving a speech and you're going to give handouts, make sure that you do not give handouts while you're giving a speech. Because people's going to look at the handouts, or they're going to pass the papers back and forth while you're talking, and they're not going to hear that. So if you're going to give handouts, make sure that they go at the very beginning of the speech before you talk, or they go after your speech. But don't do it during the speech.
Now, taking these points into consideration, plus your experience that you've had getting in front of class and giving a speech, now you've got some ideas on how to improve your speech and how to improve on our final speeches, and of course on speeches that you may give in other classes or once you graduate. Now it's your time. Let's put these words into practice and let's be successful.